Good afternoon. Welcome. All right. Where's Jill and her whistle when you need her? Hey, Jill. Can you whistle? Really? All right, that almost worked. We're trying to whistle at you guys. Both because we think you're good looking and because we're ready to get started. Nice. All right. Welcome to the third Startup Paradise Demo Day. Thank you all so much for being here. We are absolutely thrilled to see everybody here and to see so many new faces as this community just keeps growing and getting better and better. My name is Dawn Lippert. I'm the director of the Energy Accelerator, so you're going to hear from some of our companies today. And before we get started, I would like to introduce the CEO of PICHTR, the Pacific International Center for High Technology Research, which is the parent organization of the Energy Accelerator. And up here to give you a few words is our CEO, Dennis Teranishi.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the Energy Accelerator, which is a program of PICHTR, really appreciates being able to be such an active participant in this startup paradise. I wanted to start by asking, because I see some people with as much gray hair as me in this room, how many of you have heard of the Big Five in Hawaii? Okay, so quite a few. The Big Five, many of the Big Five companies, and there's, by the way, the Big Five companies were Seabrook, TOH Davies, Dillingham, AmFact, Seabrook, and Alexander and Baldwin, A&B. A&B is the only surviving Big Five company. Dillingham is still here, but in a very, very different, much, much smaller form. A&B is the only one. Almost all of them started with the sugar industry. But the change came, and it's been over 20 years since the Big Five has gone away, other than A&B. There were 65 sugar plantations at the height of the sugar industry. There's only one left. The reason why I bring this up is because these corporations, there were big corporations, $1 to $2.5 billion in size, did not change. We're not able to make a change with the times, and there's only one left, A&B, who was able to make the changes necessary. There are remnants of these companies still here, like, for example, TOH Davies did start up Mercedes-Benz dealership, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. So there are those pieces still here. But the main reason I want to bring that up is because as a consequence of these corporations, it's been very difficult because the structure was set for corporate system rather than entrepreneurial. So I think it's taken about this long for some of those established systems to change, to allow some of these things, like the startups, to happen. A major contributor to this shift is our educational systems, and specifically the emphasis on STEM education. Thus, it's very appropriate, I think, that we are meeting here at Iolani School, which has a very strong STEM program. Unfortunately, the president who wanted to be here is traveling, so he won't be here to join us and learn more about what we're doing here. But he's very supportive of STEM education. Now, today you'll hear from 5 Energy Accelerator companies and 5 blue stars startup companies seeking to solve some of the problems that we have or opportunities we have in Hawaii. And one of them, of course, is our reliance of fossil fuel. So I would like to turn the program over back to Dawn Lippert, who is the co-developer of this program. She's the brains and the spark plug of the Energy Accelerator. So Dawn.
All right, thanks. I think no one really embodies this transition from sort of the corporate establishment to startups better than Dennis, because he actually made his career in the Big Five and now is really helping us build our entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we give our big mahalo to him and all the others in our community that are helping as well. So as you said, we've seen a major groundswell of entrepreneurial activity here. But I think even bigger than that has been the way the business community has pivoted to embrace entrepreneurship and to support all of our entrepreneurs. And many of them are here today. I know it's always obligatory at these kinds of events to thank your sponsors. But I want to thank our sponsors really not for their financial support only, but for specifically all the work they do in helping us seek out and deploy innovation here. So our key partners at the Energy Accelerator are the Office of Naval Research, which is part of the Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Energy, the State of Hawaii, and Hawaiian Electric Industries. And I'd like to give them all a round of applause. So this is a really massive mission that we've undertaken at the Energy Accelerator, seeking to transform our economy from one dependent on oil to one dependent on clean energy for the majority of our energy use. I'd also like to thank the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, Hawaii Strategic Development Corporation, the State Energy Office, because these are public sector leaders that have, not only taken on their main government roles they usually have as the public sector, but they've really stepped forward to help lead our entrepreneurial community and support the ecosystem here. So thank you all very much. They've also helped make this event possible for all of you. So, and then finally, I'd like to thank our team, who many of you know, but I'm going to ask them all to stand up now, including Lauren, who's over here behind the stage. We have Lauren, Jill, Debbie, Warren, and Brad. We also have Chenoa and Maurice, who couldn't be here today. So thank you to all of you. You guys know it's always the people that make stuff happen. So thank you also to all of you for coming. One of the main things that we always talk about at the Energy Accelerator, and we're trying to get fantastic mainland and Hawaii companies to apply and to become part of our program, is the vibrant ecosystem that we have. And that ecosystem is right here. That's all of you. So thank you all so much for coming. You can applaud yourselves. It's okay. I will absolutely applaud you too. All right. So each year we select 14 startups. This year we're actually right now accepting applications for our 4th and 5th cohorts of startups within the Energy Accelerator. We provide startups between about $75,000 to up to $1 million to help them really launch their companies and grow their companies. And we select startups through an approach that we called place-centered innovation. So you're probably like, what is that? So here's how we define that. Place-centered innovation is looking at the problems of a place, actually really deeply understanding the problems of a place, and for us, that place is right here, Hawaii, and then looking for solutions to help solve those problems and challenges. So that's what we call place-centered innovation, and it's how we deploy our capital to companies. So today, you're going to hear from 5 of the companies that are in our current cohort that are really looking at solving those problems and building businesses in the meantime. They have to do both things to be successful. Energy is not a challenge that's abstract. I hope it's not abstract to you. Probably isn't when you pay your utility bill. So let me put this in perspective for just a second. Everyone's always like, oh, why is so dependent on oil? But here's what it looks like, okay? So our economy in Hawaii is about $60 billion a year. We spend on oil about $6 billion a year. So we send that off in oil tankers. You can just imagine oil coming in, the tankers getting all filled up with cash, and then they go out, right? It's a major hole in the economy. So that's enough about problems. I hope that you're all here because you're optimists just like us. So now we're going to talk about some of the solutions. So first, I'd actually like to bring up Ian, who's the CEO of Oro Eco. He's going to tell us about a company that can help you better align your personal values with your lifestyle. So for me, I mean, my personal values, I want to make the world a better place. I ride my bike, go to the farmer's market, but how do I know how that actually affects the world? So Ian's going to tell us about it.
Great. Thanks a lot, Don, for that introduction. And thanks to Don and all the Energy Accelerator team. It's really been a fantastic program. So quick plug for Energy Accelerator again. Applications close soon, so if you or any of your friends are interested in this sort of stuff, apply. It's definitely worth it. So my name's Ian Monroe. I am the CEO and one of the founders of Oro Eco, and beyond that, I'm also a lecturer at Stanford University where I teach courses on climate change and renewable energy. And what we're tackling with Oro Eco is really a big fundamental problem. It's that all of us, generally, I would say everyone in this room at least, but the vast majority of humanity wants to do what's right for other people, for the planet, for our own personal health, etc. But we're surrounded by far too many choices, and it's really hard to tell which are the big choices, which are the small ones, how do they all add up, and do we actually get rewarded for making better choices on a daily basis? So most of us end up just kind of giving up, getting overwhelmed, and doing what's cheapest and most convenient. So this means that we end up having a big gap between what we say we believe and then how we actually behave, what we do on a daily basis. So with Oro Eco, we've created a solution to this, a one-stop platform that helps bridge that gap between your beliefs and your behavior and align your personal values with your everyday life. We start by automatically tracking what you're doing based on your spending and investment decisions, linking up to mint.com, which is part of Intuit. And then we also link up to your energy data with green button data for utilities that support that. And then with this, we add a bunch of quantitative metrics for social, environmental, political, and personal health impact indicators. And then we take this, what could be overwhelming information, and make it all social and fun by linking into Facebook, Twitter, and adding in a bunch of points, prizes, and rewards. Driving behavior change for individuals, and then scaling up that behavior change to behavior change for corporations and for governments as well. So our initial product is focused entirely on climate change. It's an issue I'm personally very passionate about. It's an issue, obviously, that affects Hawaii quite profoundly. We're already locked into 12 feet of sea level rise here. It could be over 200 feet of sea level rise. Coral reefs are expected to go away entirely within 70 years based on the current rate of global warming. So we're focused on scaling up solutions to climate change with Oro Eco's initial platform. We launched on Earth Day, and we've already received over 50,000 views from 128 countries with absolutely zero marketing budget. And the reason we've been able to do this is the media loves us. We've been picked up by more than 40 major publications, including Forbes, Fast Company, Reuters, Huffington Post, and many, many more. And we've gotten glowing reviews, and then people have been sharing us on social media. So here's a look at Oro Eco's first beta web app. It automatically tracks your impacts on climate change based on how you're spending and investing your money anywhere in the world. Stick a carbon number on everything, and you can see how that changes over time, how different aspects of your life compare. If, for example, how does flying compare with driving, compare with public transit, compare with your diet, compare with your clothing, shopping, etc. And you can also compare yourself versus the average in your area, the average in the US, the average in your zip code even. And you can dive down and make sure calculations are really accurate. If you go back, you can see that I got these big spikes. Those are coming from flights. Initially, I automatically track those flights based on how much money I'm spending on flying. And then if you want, you can dive in, put in your actual flight path, what airline you're flying with, what class you're flying to improve those calculations. And you can go in and tell us other things that we can't see that improve calculations further, like how your diet compares to the average US diet, how much red meat and veggies you're eating, what percentage local, what percentage organic. And then we give you 50 personalized tips, and it'll soon be more, based on your actual data for how you can both help stop climate change and save money at the same time. And many of these tips can link in with a number of the other clean tech companies you'll hear pitching today. For example, putting solar on your roof is something that helps with climate change. It can save you a lot of money over time, as pretty much all of you know, and then we can link to companies that are doing that in your area. And the most most promising ones, the best rated ones. And then personal actions alone can't get any of us to where we actually need to get to solve climate change. So we've also built in carbon offsets that you can purchase through a partnership with an award-winning nonprofit called Impact Carbon. You can also compare and compete with all your friends. We link into Facebook so you can see how you're doing versus each and every friend that's interested in the platform. And we're, of course, doing everything mobile. Our mobile app is coming out in a couple months for iOS. So you can compare with your friends, check in for goals, earn rewards. And we're soon also launching a premium service that tracks the impacts of your investment portfolio. And we're also partnering with a hedge fund to launch an exchange-traded fund that's a low-carbon fund where we'd get some of the management fees for that. So you can see the difference between putting $1,000 in Google versus Walmart versus Nike, etc. And we'll be the first platform in the world to do this, and we're already the first automated carbon tracking tool in the world. So how do we make money? We get a cut of the carbon offset revenue. We have premium app subscriptions for the investment portfolio stuff. We've got low carbon exchange traded fund management fees, as I mentioned. And then further down the road, what we really see this as the most powerful targeted marketing platform on the planet, where we know a lot about what our users care about, how and where you're spending your money, and also what, more importantly, motivates you to change. And we're also talking with companies. We're in the process of finalizing a partnership with Intuit to roll out business-to-business employee challenges to engage employees around sustainability. We're targeting an initial market in the US and Canada of 43 million, and we're planning to eventually target a market worldwide of 500 million. Here's our big hockey stick. We do think we can get to a multi-billion-dollar company within 3 years if we do this right, but I really want you to focus on that break-even number. We break even at 120,000 users, and actually with our exchange-traded funds, we will probably break even at 0 users. There's some companies out there doing different aspects of what we're doing, but there's nobody who's doing it holistically. We are the only one-stop platform for automatically tracking and rewarding how your personal values intersect with your life. And most of those potential competitors are actually potential collaborators as well. And the reason we're able to do this is we really have a world-class team of scientists, engineers, and designers. As I mentioned, lecture at Stanford University. I've consulted around the world in 21 countries, working on sustainability with big and small companies like Nike and Walmart and UPS. And our team comes from the world's top universities and large tech companies and startups as well. And then we have over 75 advisors that are all-stars in the NGO and industry. And they are constantly helping us grow. We've got even a couple Nobel Prize-winning climate scientists who are involved. So the mission with this is really much more than just being a multi-billion-dollar company. We think if we do this right, we can fundamentally re-engineer the global economy for sustainability. So join us at oroeco.com, and if you are an accredited investor and you're interested, we're currently raising a 500K angel round. It's closing July 14th, so quite soon, and we've already raised $280,000 of that, so we're getting pretty close. So thanks a lot for your time. Really excited to see everybody else's pitches, and I'll transition to Don.
An individual impacting the energy system. But here's the story we're going to tell you today. It's about you, so you as an individual. But it's also about your role in our energy system. I don't know if you knew before today that you're part of our energy system, but hopefully by the end
when movement is detected as you walk in the room, it can adjust the climate for you, and it can turn on the fan. So this is really the only app that will let you monitor the things inside your home and control your home together. Now, the smart home is pretty cool, but it's sort of individualistic. When you take the smart home beyond, a step beyond what other companies are doing today, and you put it in the context of a wider community, what we call a community social network, that's when things get really, really interesting. Because service providers today need a way to engage with their customers and in order to meet their goals and their mandates. So there's this addiction called social networks, right? And it can spin positive or negative. And so with our Internet of Everything platform that powers all this technology, combined with this winning lifestyle app presence, service providers like utilities and buildings and military communities and energy service providers and so on, they finally have a way to engage with their customers and make those social networks spin positive. So we are getting some real traction today with service providers who are rolling this out to their customer base. In North America, we are rolling this out to about 2,000 homes now. We're on target to do 10,000 homes by the end of the year. In Ontario, Canada, we're actually rolling this out. There are 4 million homes up for grabs, winner take all. We're working with large companies like TalkTalk Consultancy Group to do just that. Now, you might wonder, why is it that this app is so sticky? It's really because we have come up with something that really matters. Our platform enables stuff that matters. The stuff that matters is not necessarily saving a few dollars on your electric bill. It's knowing that your home is safe, keeping an eye on your pets, your kids, your loved ones, your elderly relatives. Those are the things that matter. And this is why our company is doing 6 times the revenue this year than we did last year, and it's only halfway through the year. So there's also some major trends in the industry which are going our way. And in fact, one of them we designed ourselves. It's called Green Button. Now, if you haven't heard of Green Button, I encourage you to go onto Google and figure this out, because Green Button is disruptive. This is a major industry trend. Green Button is at the heart of smart grid and smart buildings. And with Green Button, you can connect metered data to people without deploying hardware. So what this means for these service providers is they can roll out these engagement programs, these community social networks, without being encumbered by hardware. So our chief scientist, John Teeter, is in the White House today pushing Green Button forward into the rest of America. Now, there's another huge trend happening, and that is last week, Apple announced this big step into the Internet of Things. Some companies are nervous about this. I am personally very excited about this because we are positioned so sweet to sit right in between Apple's local HomeKit connectivity. This is basically connecting things inside your home with the ability to control it remotely and starting for free by using that presence camera to bridge into your home. I'm happy to speak to those who are interested about this later. You'll find me at the booth later on. But, you know, none of this is possible without having a killer team. And we have an amazing team of startup-minded individuals cherry-picked from our previous startup companies. Our last one that most of us here did together was called Bitphone Corporation. And at Bitphone, you know that Green Button play I just described? That came right out of our Bitphone playbook, where at Bitphone we created the global standards for over-the-air firmware updates on your cell phones. So that technology that we developed at Bitphone is found today in over 300 million devices worldwide. We sold that company to HP in 2007 for $160 million. Today we are looking for $8 million, which will get us to profitability by 2016. You'll find me again at the booth at the end of this conference, and I'd love to speak with some of you more about all of this. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, thanks, David. So now we have ourselves in our homes. How many of you drive a car? Don't worry, you'll see where I'm going with this. Okay, how many of you actually drive an electric vehicle? This is a little bit more interesting. Wow, great. That's like 10% of the people in this audience. So one thing about, in addition to sort of changing our homes and businesses, there are major trends underway in transportation. So the rapidly changing trends in energy are changing not only the way we drive, but also how we get our fuel. So Aaron's going to tell us a little bit more about that story. He's one of the co-founders of Laudowicz.
Thank you. So my name is Aaron Cates. I am the data architect analyst at Laudowicz. I'm also a co-founder. And Laudowicz is a technology platform that allows car dealerships and customers to really motivate and facilitate the sale of electric vehicles, as well as allowing them to pair the purchase of the fuel for that car and the next 5 at the time of that transaction. We're doing this by partnering with an existing network of car dealerships through their finance and insurance office, the F&I office in the back. Now, the problem that they face is that car dealerships in the traditional model, the combustion engine vehicle, they really leverage on all the complexity. There's a lot of moving components, a lot of failure points, and what they do is they sell insurance products, gap insurance, extended warranties, paint coverage, things like that, that really hinge on all the things that can go wrong with this car. This is where it's actually a major profit center for car dealerships. They make upwards of several $1,000s per vehicle. This becomes an issue when they try to sell an electric car because it is very simple. There's few moving parts. The parts that do move are well understood. Its electric motor has been around for over 100 years. And the car dealers protect these components with long warranties, 7, 8, 10 years, to really remove all the risk and all uncertainty in making this decision. So there's little for a car dealership to make any money on, $300 or $400 perhaps. So they're disincented to sell electric cars currently. And Laudowicz fixes this and also really bridges the gap between their interests and the car manufacturers. Car manufacturers want to move a lot of electric vehicles because they are mandated by the federal government to bring their fleet average fuel economy up to 54.5 miles per gallon by 2030. So these electric cars are going to be made, they're going to be manufactured, and they're going to be pushed onto these car lots, and car dealers don't want to sell them. But they are selling. There's an existing customer base, and there's a lot of demand currently in the market. Last year, there's nearly 100,000 cars sold in the US alone. This year, it's expected to meet almost double that, and it'll grow exponentially over the several years following. What this means for customers is that they're going to have to walk away from the traditional method of fueling their vehicle. You're no longer going to go to a gas station and fill your car with gasoline. It's expensive, it's dirty, it's not very convenient. They're going to replace that with a new fuel source. Laudowicz platform allows customers to pair their electric vehicle, depending on where they live, their driving habits, and a number of other details we'll get into later, with a PV system on their roof. It's really simple, it's clean, you don't have to think about it, you plug your car in when you get home and it's charged when you wake up. This also is important to customers because they can save a lot of money. In every state in the country, if you plug an EV into the wall, you will save by charging it from utility compared to filling a traditional vehicle with gasoline. What Laudowicz can do is we can provide further savings by giving certain customers in different regions alternative electricity rates, structures, or an EV PV system. There's different financing as well, and we can give significant savings even over plug-in into the wall. We bring all that information to the point of transaction. In that finance and insurance office, while you're buying the car, we provide the tools, the data, the information very, very simply and all in one place. On the Laudowicz platform, we can ask just a few points of information that's already collected at the time of the transaction, primarily is zip codes, some credit information, and we offer choices to that customer. We don't try to sell them a PV system, we tell them what choices they have to fuel that car. And in deregulated states, we can tie into different rate structures and sell wind energy versus oil energy versus coal energy. And you can choose where your fuel is coming from, how much you're willing to save, how much it costs up front, and what your monthly payment will be. And we do this through rather sophisticated analytics. We tie into big data sources. We use local gas prices, real-time data, utility rate structures depending on where you live, historical and forecasted weather projections, and consumer credit. So all that's pulled in. One example we have is LiDAR data. Here's the island of Oahu. We also have several municipalities in the mainland where we've scanned rooftops. We know what the solar availability is in your home. Depending on how many miles you drive per year, we can tell you if you need 8 panels or 10 panels and how much it's going to cost you. Laudowicz is looking to participate in the $200,000 EV sales this year. We are launching into 8 states initially, depending on incentives and various other economic reasons. We're adding a dealer a month over 9 months, looking for 13 dealers this year. About 5,000 EVs sold on the desks of these dealerships, and we would like to participate in 15% of those and convert those into solar sales as well. So our plan is looking forward to make about $400,000 in revenue this year, growing quickly. Next year we're going to add 2 dealers per month, 3 dealers, and 4 dealers over the coming years. This is also an opportunity for us where we can reach into the secondary market, upsell, cross-sell, battery replacements and swaps, extended warranties, as well as international markets. There's a lot of growth as this market really expands into other countries. So that is the Laudowicz platform. We are moving electric cars, we're pairing them with PV, and allowing homeowners to save money while purchasing their fuel for the next 20 years. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Aaron, and his fantastic team. That team knows solar really well. They actually were the team behind Synetric, who many of you know if you're here locally. So some of our great local talent showcased on that team. Another great local talent story is about to come up next, so he's going to tell you. His story actually started here, and I mean like right here. He'll tell you about that. Batteries are a key part of any electric vehicle. And really any long-term energy solution. So he's going to tell you about how he's disrupting batteries. There you go.
All right, hi there. My name is Brian Ho. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ballast Energy. And it's great here, as Don said, being specifically here on Iolani campus, presenting my company. Because the story of Ballast Energy actually starts right here. This is the 3rd grade. I got my education here. And it really was actually in the 4th grade here at Iolani during our Hawaiian history curriculum where my interest in sustainability started. We got taken down to the aquifer under Oahu and saw the water table. And as a young kid, looking at the markings on the wall and seeing that water table fall year after year after year, it really struck in me that tension that exists between human resource consumption and resource availability. And the desire to sort of address that tension really followed me through my undergraduate studies at Harvard and my PhD in lithium-ion battery research at MIT. And now that I'm here working on Ballast, day in and day out, I get to go into work and start sort of chiseling away at that problem. So Ballast Energy is a lithium-ion battery technology company. We will leverage battery manufacturing partners to deliver an unprecedented combination of performance and low cost to energy storage customers. The problem that exists today is that users and consumers of energy storage really are sort of trapped between 2 divergent and incomplete solutions. Now, here I track the important metrics here of size, weight, lifetime, and cost on 4 axes. A real ideal, perfect solution would fill that diamond. Now, on one hand, you have lead-acid batteries. They've been around for 100 years. They're affectionately called dirt in a box. And the reason for that is they're really, really cheap. Now, the trade-off, though, is that they lack on performance. They're heavy, they're large, and they don't last very long. On the other hand, there's a high-performance battery. In the last 20 years, lithium-ion batteries have come onto the stage. They're 1/3 the weight, half the size, up to 4 times the lifetime of lead-acid batteries, but you pay a 5 to 10-fold premium for them. So they're unaffordable for many mainstream applications. What we're working on at Ballast Energy is a low-cost manufacturing innovation to really complete that quad, to fill up a diamond with an affordable, high-performance battery. Of course, the key is how do we do that? And here I'm going to nerd out a little bit with you guys. A typical lithium-ion battery is built up of layers of electrodes. All right, that's the key energy storage component. That's where the chemistry is. In a traditional battery, the movement of lithium ions in and out of the electrode is very slow. And therefore, these electrodes need to be very thin. They're paper thin. That paper thin electrode is very difficult to make, leading to high capital costs and low throughput in the manufacturing process. What we do at Ballast Energy is we have a patent pending electrode design to rapidly speed up the movement of ions in and out of that electrode. We can make our electrodes 10-fold thicker than conventional. And so now instead of making paper thin, delicate electrodes, we're making rigid, robust, ultra thick electrodes. What this lets us do is use lower capital cost, higher throughput manufacturing equipment, and also save on bill of materials components. For every electrode in there is sandwiched between a metallic foil and a polymeric separator. Those elements can add up to about 25% of the bill of materials in the battery. They contribute nothing to the chemical reaction, but they are expensive components in the battery. We cut down those bill of materials by about a factor of 5 to 10x. Now, the key question sort of surrounding sort of a battery technology company is how do you get your product to market? It's a challenging endeavor because it's a very capital-intensive industry. Ballast Energy will focus on its core competency of intellectual property generation through innovative research. We'll then take that intellectual property and license it to battery manufacturers. We'll enable battery manufacturers in the lead-acid industry to offer their customers a truly differentiated premium product. We'll allow battery manufacturers in the lithium-ion industry to actually grow their markets by entering traditional markets dominated by lead-acid batteries. And how do we get there? Well, the next 12 months of Ballast Energy is continued scale up and optimization of its battery cells. Here we show our sort of 3 scales that we've been working on. Right now we're at the largest scale, a 4x6-inch cell, which is our sort of commercial scale cell. We have a little bit more scale up to do and a little bit more optimization. While we're doing this, we'll actively be looking for pilot manufacturing partners to take us into pilot manufacturing in year 2. Based on the de-risking of our low-cost manufacturing process in year 2, we'll then enter commercial relationships with battery manufacturers through this IP licensing model to really bring our technology to the commercial market. We're focused initially on battery manufacturers that serve the deep cycle lead-acid battery market. And the reason for that is that we're going to build a foundation for the company based on markets and customers that exist today. These are industrial and consumer users of these deep cycle lead-acid batteries. Once we're done establishing a base work for our company, that's when we get to the exciting stuff. Then this is distributed energy storage on the grid. The combination of long life and low upfront costs means that we have an unprecedentedly low levelized cost of energy storage, which is perfect for grid storage. Now, the challenge though here is that these markets are exciting, they're gonna come, but they're not here yet. So it's not a great place to start a company. We're gonna, again, establish a foothold in the established legacy markets, and then go after the really exciting stuff. A bit about Ballast Energy in a glance. We're 3 years old. We were founded back in 2011. We're based out of Berkeley, California, and we have a patent pending on our core IP around our novel electrode microstructure. We have a combination of private angel money and public grants funding us. To date, we've raised $850,000, again via angel money and grants through the California Energy Commission, Hawaii Energy Accelerator, and National Science Foundation. Up top, you see a photo of our lab. We have a fully functioning advanced lithium-ion R&D lab out in Berkeley. And we take inputs of powder and foil, and we transform them into complete finished battery cells. Here's a team. We're working around the clock to sort of bring this exciting innovation to market. Brian and Brian are the co-founders. It makes it easy for everyone to remember us. It makes it terrible for conference calls. And over the years, we've added Jeremy, Dan, Simi, and Cliff to the team. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions in the reception afterwards. And that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. All right. So we have one more left, and we're going to kind of bring it all together. So we've been talking about our energy space as a system. So there's you, your house, your car, businesses and industry, and then there's the system that connects us all. And we've had a lot of change in our energy system in the last few years, especially if you look around and maybe your neighbor even has solar panels on their roof. It's creating a whole new kind of energy paradigm where energy is coming into the grid from all new kinds of sources, and it's very variable. So what we really need is a way to better manage that grid and make the grid more reliable and more predictable and easier to manage. So this is a problem that's really looking for a great solution. And luckily we have Olin Lagan here, who's the CEO of Shifted Energy, to tell us about their solution. Thanks.
Aloha. With Shifted Energy, we provide simple, low-cost, grid-level energy storage. Let's talk about energy storage. Question for you guys. If you took every battery ever made in all of human history, how long could you power the US grid with that? Bill, what do you think? Putting you on the spot. Every battery ever made in all of human history, or someone else. 2 weeks? Okay. A month? A day. We're getting closer. It's actually 7 minutes. So not very long, right? And the truth is, if we want to scale up renewable energy, we absolutely need low-cost energy storage. Without that, this doesn't work. Wind blows when the wind blows, sun shines during the day. If we can't shift that load, all that excess energy, which is happening right now, is being thrown away. This is a huge problem. You ask any grid operator, it's becoming a beast of a problem, and it's growing bigger as we're sort of deploying more renewable energy. And the reason why it's a problem is that batteries are so damn expensive. You take, if you want to get 1 kilowatt-hour of energy, and you want to do that with AA batteries, it's going to cost you $700 to get that amount of energy. You can get that from the grid for 33 cents. So there's a huge gap between the cost of electricity being produced and the cost of electricity being stored. And this is a more relevant slide here. The Electricity Storage Association broke down all the different types of grid storage technologies that are out there. And the big takeaway here is that all of these technologies start off at about $1,000 a kilowatt. And then some of them go way up past $6,000+ a kilowatt. They did identify one technology that operates at that range right there. And that technology, what's really interesting is at the highest end right now, it's already far cheaper than anything else on the market. And that technology is hot water heaters. What the hell? How does that work? Yeah. So how does a hot water heater work as energy storage? So hot water heater looks like a battery, like a giant AA battery. Yeah, you kind of get that. And it is a battery. It's a thermal storage device. So when you heat up your hot water, you can heat it up with electricity, turn it off. 6 hours later, the water's still hot. You can take a shower with it or wash your clothes or do whatever else you want. And so it effectively shifted that energy over 6 hours. And it uses so much energy that one hot water heater is equal to 2 plug-in Prius hybrids. And if you walk out of this building and look around in this community within 1 mile radius, you're going to find thousands of these devices. In other words, thousands and thousands of Prius plug-in equivalents right here on the grid. Uses a lot of energy. So the trick then is to time that energy. So if you can time the heating of these heaters to coincide with the available excess renewable energy, you've got yourself cheap storage. So in this example, the wind blows, goes to the grid needs it, the grid uses it. If the grid doesn't need it, it doesn't have to now go to expensive batteries. We can redirect that energy in real time to water heaters. So here's the secret sauce. Well, actually not all of it, but some of it. So it's actually pretty simple. So what we do is when you work with a wind farm or a solar farm, they have these signals. So the signals include information like, hey, over the next 20 minutes, I've got 2 megawatts of extra energy in sector X. And so our software can read that information coming in and say, sector X, 2 megawatts of energy, that's 3,000 water heaters. So we send a signal to 3,000 water heaters to say, go. And then these heaters will then turn on and suck up that excess energy. And all of this happens within seconds. Not minutes, not hours, but seconds. So within seconds of us being notified that there's excess energy, we'll suck 100% of it up. So we actually got started as a nonprofit last year, but one of the coolest nonprofits in the world called Hawaii. And we self-financed this operations for the past year and a half. And then this year is when we really started jamming. So we incorporated a B Corp called Shifted Energy, and we've already clocked over $500,000 in revenue in this space. And these are some of our clients. So Hawaiian Electric, we're working with HECO on Oahu, and Maui Electric, we're working with them. Anybody want to guess where? Yeah. Kauai, perfect. Yeah, on Maui. So we have live projects on the ground on both of these islands right now doing this kind of work. And then we're also working with EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute, and they're our back end, so they're going to check everything we do and then publish the data for the rest of the electricity industry. And we have some seed funding from the awesome folks at the Energy Accelerator. This is our team, small team right now, but we're pretty passionate about this work. My background is I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started multiple companies. I love software. I've designed and deployed software for a bunch of Global 1000 companies, including institutions like MIT and the Olympics. And so, in sum, what we're really doing is disrupting energy storage. You think about it. We have the only solution that takes an asset already on the grid. These water heaters are already on the grid, interconnected, and we're turning them into grid-level batteries. When you think about it, how can anything else ever compete on a cost basis with that? Because we're not going to install any kind of chemistry or mechanical storage. Everything is already integrated. And there are hundreds of millions of these heaters all around the world, and they're all really, really dumb right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to find them, we're going to turn them into smart water heaters, we're going to interconnect them with grids, and then turn that into one of the world's largest thermal storage of energy. Thank you very much.
All right, so that's our story about the energy system in Hawaii. That's part of the story. As I mentioned, those are 5 of our companies. We have 14 this year. And they'll all be going to Silicon Valley in 2 weeks with the rest of our companies to pitch at Google at our Energy Accelerator Interactive event. Because ultimately this story is about Hawaii, but it's also about a lot more than Hawaii. Because to create really large-scale, important companies, you have to go beyond our shores. So that's really what we're working on with these companies. So I know these guys make it look easy, but it's really not easy. Presenting maybe is the easiest part of something that's really, really difficult. Ultimately, it's really about building a business. So I have one challenge for you guys that are all here today, which is next time you meet an entrepreneur, I'd challenge you to buy them a cup of coffee. They probably have less money than you. Listen to their story, and also see how you can help. Because ultimately, I think we all know it really takes a community to raise a company, and you guys are that community. So let's give all of our entrepreneurs one last round of applause. Well done, guys.
All right. Aloha. Okay. It's great to see everybody. I'm going to introduce Dave McClure. Hopefully you all already know who he is because he's really effing famous. All right.
Usually for the wrong things.
Dave McClure is the founder of 500 Startups. 500 Startups is a venture accelerator out of Silicon Valley, and they've been really, really supportive of us at Blue Startups ever since we got started here about 1.5 years ago. So we really owe them a debt of gratitude for that. 500 Startups is like an amazing venture accelerator, though. They're kind of like Blue Startups on steroids times 1,000 or something like that. They invest in batches of 30 companies at a time, and they're opening up new locations, actually, outside of Silicon Valley and doing amazing things. I had on my little sheet that they'd invested in over 600 companies, but on the ride over here, Dave told me it's now 750. Is that right? So you can imagine this absolutely frenetic pace of investing that they're doing. They do invest globally, so that's also very interesting for our accelerator market, very unusual. Up to 25% of their deals are done outside the country. So that's really remarkable. And they've invested in companies from over 40 countries. Crazy. Okay. So that's Dave McClure. That's why he's so effing famous, because he's doing all that crazy stuff. Okay.
I think it's more because I have really bad slides.
Well, and because he has really bad slides, we're going to talk to him, and I'm going to be interviewing him. How about that? All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so my first question for you, since you just flew in from where?
from
He
Taiwan by
doesn't
way
even
of
know.
Tokyo, which wasn't very efficient. Probably too much carbon there.
All right. So, if for those of you who don't know, Dave McClure is a consummate globetrotter, like absolutely just constantly on the go. And I'm his Facebook friend, and I'm exhausted just by watching your Facebook feed. So, my first question to you is, why all the traveling? What are you doing out there?
Well, so I could come up with a really great reason that sounds very altruistic or economically interesting, but the real reason is I like to travel.
Thank God.
I like to meet people in other places, and I finally figured out a career path that allows me to do that. I don't know, I didn't really get to travel much when I was younger. A little bit to Japan because my wife's from there, but mostly, I think, like before 2008, I had really left the country only like 5 or 6 times outside the trips to Japan. And now I'm kind of catching up. So I really wanted to travel when I was younger, and I didn't do it. So now I'm going after that. From the kind of strategy-wise and economics-wise, we kind of believe that a lot of the things we're doing in Silicon Valley can be done elsewhere, and that most of the growth that's going to be happening over the next 10 to 20 years is probably not in the US. In fact, particularly it's most likely Latin America, Southeast Asia, a little bit East Asia, and then Middle East and Africa. So we're trying to spend a lot of time getting to know those parts of the world and putting people on the team, and occasionally raising money and spending money there as well. But it's really because I selfishly just want to travel.
Well, I'm really glad you enjoy it.
Don't tell my investors.
Yeah, because I was feeling sorry for you, but I guess I'm not now, because you're actually enjoying yourself out there. And
travel is one of the most magical things on the planet. Absolutely amazing. Just can't, like, people talk about, like, oh, you must travel a lot and that's really tiring, and I'm like, yeah, well, a little bit, but actually being able to be 6,000 miles away in 24 hours and, you know, have lunch or dinner with people who, you know, live halfway around the world is closest thing to magic I can think of.
awesome. Well, that's good. I'm glad. So tell
You can
us,
do it too, really, you can.
Well, I don't know.
There's probably a lot of people in Hawaii do.
Tell us a little bit about kind of just statistics. Where have you been? How many countries? What was just the last month, let's just say? What was your last month like?
So this is the 8th stop on a 3-week trip that was North Carolina, Bahrain, Jordan, Dubai, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Singapore, and then Taiwan. So East Coast, 3 countries in the Middle East, 3 countries in Asia, Hawaii, and back home. Get home for about 24, 48 hours. I go to Mexico for 3 days. And before this trip, I was in Saudi Arabia and Korea.
You see what I mean? Doesn't it sound like, wow, okay, what time
There
zone
really is a reason for all that.
are you in? Yeah, so, and then we understand it's a part of your strategy.
In particular, I would say right now we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out the Middle East and the Arabic-speaking market, and then Southeast Asia. We have a team in KL right now, and they're getting a new fund off the ground, and we're working with the Malaysian government there. So that's
why
a lot of
those places in particular? What's interesting to you about those?
2 very vibrant, growing geographies. So Arabic-speaking market, probably 300 to 500 million people. Varying levels of kind of spend, but mostly a very young market. Growing levels of smartphone adoption, credit card penetration. So by population numbers, I think Arabic speakers are close to 10% of the planet, but content on the web is only about 1%. So there's a lot of interest in sort of creating markets and services for the Middle Eastern market, and there's frankly a lot of money that came out of the oil industry in the GCC, in the Gulf Coast countries, and they're quickly trying to transition out of being oil-based economies into information economies. So there's a tremendous amount of capital in those countries that's trying to figure out startups and tech companies. Southeast Asia is similarly, it's not one necessarily culture, it's a lot of different cultures, but Indonesia is also probably half of that market, probably 600 million people in Southeast Asia, 300 million of which are in Indonesia. You're Indonesian?
Three of them that made it to Hawaii here.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, and so you were just in Asia, and obviously Asia for Hawaii holds a very specific interest, and we're very much kind of culturally aligned and geographically close as well. So tell us what is happening in the startups in Asia. What was your impression?
So the places that I was just at were Taiwan and Singapore and Malaysia, but we've also spent time in a lot of other places. I was just recently in Korea. We have a team member in Beijing, and I've spent a fair amount of time in Japan. So it's different stories in each of those places, but particularly there's a lot of government interest in figuring out how to get their version of Silicon Valley rolling. Singapore's been doing that for a while. Malaysia and Korea are starting to do a lot of that very significantly. Korea actually has a program right now that's matching $9 to $1 with certain venture capital investments. I'm not sure that's a good thing. We'll see.
9 to 1. You hear that, Carl? Where's Carl? 9 to 1, Carl. Wow.
China's a completely different story. I think most people don't really understand how far along China is, but China has really, really large companies like Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu. WeChat is now being used by, I think, over 500 million people, not just in China anymore. In fact, our team uses it to communicate with folks all over the place. So there are very large companies in China that are now public entities. A lot of people may have heard Alibaba just went public, or is, filing to go public at around $100 billion valuation, and is equivalently the size of, I think, Amazon, eBay, and maybe PayPal combined. So very vibrant ecosystem, lots of startups, not always super sophisticated in how they're doing business, but China is probably the second largest entrepreneurial ecosystem and arguably the most competitive ecosystem in the world. And that's not just a China story. I think there's a story I just heard today about a company that's doing an Uber-like competitive service in San Francisco, but the taxi drivers speak Mandarin. So a lot of those billion speakers in China aren't all just in China, and they travel a lot, and the top 5 to 10% of China is very high net worth and travels globally. So I think there's very different stories in the combination of geographies in Asia. Japan's a much different story than maybe China or Korea, but still lots of stuff going on there too. And so we're just trying to figure it all out.
What do you think what do you think the opportunity is for folks like us here in Hawaii, folks that are running accelerators like Blue Startups or other folks? I mean, you have a specific strategy that you're executing on, and you can fly around the world and do that. But what about us normal folks? How do we interact with those economies?
Probably a lot of cultural connections for a variety of folks in Hawaii with many of those geographies. Certainly proximity-wise, you're closer than the rest of the U.S., and you're probably almost there on time zones. Many of them may visit here for tourism reasons. A lot of those economies have issues going on with ecological and green systems right now. China in particular has a lot of cities with really bad air quality index, and they are definitely spending money on green solutions and energy solutions. So, I don't know, you may still need to go there to participate in some of those ecosystems.
Yes, we're going to have to get on that point.
But kind of being a bridge between the States and Asia, you may be well positioned to do some things that U.S. entrepreneurs are not, or mainland-based entrepreneurs are not.
I hope so. That's our goal, right? Anyway. All right, let's talk about your investment strategy a little bit. So,
do we have a strategy? I'm not sure we
do. You keep telling me you do. If I say you don't, you're going to get mad, so I say you do. So you have invested in now 750, you said, about.
Not me personally, but yes, over 750. At least 500 of those are probably still alive.
Okay, so a third doing well, a third maybe surviving, and a third not so well. Is that?
I would say a third dead or dying, a third surviving, and a third thriving. Probably at least 150, 100 to 150 of those are doing well enough that we feel like we'll probably get some kind of exit out of them.
So is that what you expected when you started this madness?
Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't actually expect to be as close to target. I think that's been the sort of surprise, is that we weren't really that far off. Yeah. And
I know a lot of this strategy for you is about displacing small bets of heavy diversification. Do you think you have to be this large to achieve that?
I don't think that it's heavy diversification. I think the industry historically has been heavily not diversified, and the performance has borne that out. Venture capital performance over the last decade or two has really sucked. On average cases, as well as in special cases, but historical performance of probably less than 25% of venture, 50% of venture has not returned even 1x. Another 25% returns more than 1x, but doesn't beat the rest of the market that's much more liquid. And even the 25% that is beating the market can't do it fund after fund. So there's probably less than 10% of venture capitalists who actually beat a risk-adjusted return for a very illiquid security and can do it consistently, and probably much less than 10% of it know why they're doing it or how. And so a lot of people say like what we're doing is like, oh, we're just throwing darts and we're just like, randomly betting. And I actually kind of look at what they're doing. It's like, no, you're the ones that are randomly betting. You're choosing 30 companies out of a portfolio and expecting that you're going to get 3 or more billion-dollar outcomes. That's insanity in most cases. Most of them don't do that at all. And I think the earlier you go as an investor and we're pretty early, accelerator and seed stage, the higher the attrition rate is. So there's kind of like these 3 fundamental things that have happened in the last 10, 20 years. One is the cost of building software companies has come down dramatically. The ability to get to customers has dramatically increased by all these different online platforms, search, social, mobile. So Google, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Android, YouTube, maybe down the road a little bit, Pinterest and others are all 100 million user services on their way to billion users if they aren't already. And so that ability to reach billions of people on the planet from your bedroom or from your garage or wherever is pretty recent. Like that was not possible even 5 years ago. So low-cost services, massive market, and then the third one is online payments being somewhat uniformly accessible around the world. We're not really there yet. That's probably like 30% of the world's population. And smartphones probably at 1.5 billion devices on its way to 3 billion. So we're almost to the point where I would say, reasonable ubiquity for a third to half the planet for low-cost services, accessible sort of devices, and payments. So that should lower friction and increase ability for any entrepreneur to reach customers all around the planet. The sad thing is failure rates of startups are still extremely high. So the big changes of the last 10 to 20 years are I don't have to spend $5 million to get a company off the ground. There's 2 orders of magnitude more people to reach, but I fail just as much as I used to. Maybe we're getting a little bit better. And so the natural reaction to that is, well, don't spend so fucking much money on the first time you see someone. That PowerPoint isn't worth $5 million. It's worth $50,000. And so we kind of we try and de-risk a lot by coming in at a particular segment of the market, which is usually our companies have functional product and they have modest customer usage, maybe $1,000 to $10,000 a month revenue if they're revenue generating, and that takes a ton of risk off the table. The remaining risks are can they make money and can they scale up?
You hear that, Blue? There's no excuse for not developing your product quickly and getting it out to the market because you have all these ways to do it, right? Okay. All right. So along with that, I wanted to ask you, with regards to investments, what do you think? Is it the jockey or the horse? What's more important? You, personally.
We're saying the jockey is the team and the horse is the product? Ultimately, it's the jockey, but you can't tell yet. So the things that you can see and measure are the horse, usually the product itself and maybe some details about customers and revenue. So, I mean, all these VCs talk about, product market team, and they are always like, team is most important, market is second most important, product really isn't that important, except, unless you're, particularly prescient, or you can look through the silver crystal ball, or you've known the team for a while, right? So, but most of our entrepreneurs are first timers or people. They may not be first time at a startup, but they're first time running a startup. So our ability to know whether they're going to execute or not is limited, and we have to make sort of risky bets. And so I think most people are full of shit when they just talk about like, oh, the team is most important. Yeah, except you don't know. You don't know until after you've written the check and you've spent 6 to 18 months with them. And actually, in 3 to 6 months, you can figure out that they're idiots.
Yeah, now I know. I know, you guys.
Or
I've been
you
with you
are,
3 months.
Right? You may be the idiot, the investor. But you can usually tell whether a combination of people and product and market work or don't work. You can tell that it doesn't work quickly within 3 to 6 months. You might not be able to tell that they're amazing for 12 to 24 months. So most of the time when we're making decisions, we're primarily looking at product, and we're looking at usage by people, and maybe we're looking at revenue. And we do inform that with like what we think the team can do, but we have to make an informed guess, and then 6 months later we'll check that.
All true. We all need crystal balls. That's it. That's all we need, crystal balls. Okay. So
actually, we need balls of steel. I don't know. Sorry, women need other things.
I don't know what I can do about that. Okay. Well, anyway.
All too often our balls are made of crystal, actually.
Okay. So, speaking of crystal balls, are we in a bubble, or what is going on here? What do you think?
There is some crazy shit going on here and there, yes.
Now, in particular, with regards to the accelerator market, you, YC, some others have just sweetened the pot. Why? You've made your deal.
Oh, I mean,
increase the amount.
Yeah. So we doubled the amount of our accelerator check from 50 to 100,000. Although we charge a $25,000 program fee, so it's net 75K to the companies.
You're making the rest of us look bad.
We're still probably better. YC's a slightly better deal than us. They're 125K, I believe, for 7%. We're net 75K for 7%. And then we also doubled the number of companies we're doing because we opened up San Francisco office. So we looked at the numbers and we thought we were making a pretty good bet on the accelerator sort of structure, at least in the Bay Area. And so we doubled down. Actually, we doubled down, doubling down. So we're doing twice as many companies a year at twice as many dollars as we were before. I think that's a good bet in the Bay Area. Outside the Bay Area, I think you need to have a particular strategy to execute. I think it's, we have the luxury in Silicon Valley of being right in the center of a lot of money, a lot of talent, a lot of other companies, and a lot of mentors and experience. So there are many great factors for doing accelerators in the Bay Area that don't travel as well outside the Bay Area.
Speaking of that,
doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yes. So how do we do it? We're doing it. We're already doing it. But how do we make it even more vibrant and more competitive globally? What we are doing here locally.
I think you have to have a very specific strategy that's branded and differentiated and takes advantage of your local attributes. I think whatever you do, you probably want to manufacture density as much as possible. So having multiple companies, whether that's 5, 10, or 30, I think you should try and increase the sample size. Probably increases your chances for success. Make sure that there's availability of downstream capital. It's probably the single most important thing. Companies hopefully, in most cases, are not going to be break even right after they leave your accelerator, and so you're going to need to help them raise capital. And then mentorship appropriate to the type of sort of categories and attributes that you're going after. So those are, have a branded strategy or a niche strategy of some sort, have mentorship, have capital availability after you come out of the program.
All right, cool. We're going to take some questions from the audience, but we're going to use a really nifty technology tool called LiveSift, which is one of our companies. Awesome. Is everybody logged on to LiveSift so you can ask Dave a question? Yeah? Okay, what's the question?
Keep it clean out there, kids.
What does it say? Someone? What will you do after you've made enough money?
I will probably try and find a gig like Henk and let my daughter run the show. I think, what's enough money? Yeah. 10 million net after taxes is probably enough money, at least in California. I could probably survive on less than that in Thailand. Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing this for the money. There would be other ways to make a lot more money than what I'm doing. I think we will make money, but I'm probably having the most fun doing what I'm doing as well as getting the chance to make money. What will I do after I've made enough money? Do more of this.
More. Okay, well, next question.
Actually, not have to appeal to LPs. That would be great.
Oh, that would be. Oh, no, I love all my LPs. Love you guys. Love you. Thank you. Okay.
You do so effing much. What's the most important life hack you employ for managing it all? In generally, focus is not one of my strengths. We try a lot of shit, and about a third of it works, and maybe 10% of it works well. I try and delegate and try and hire and find other people who are passionate and smart to help execute. The one interesting little hack is when you travel, people think you're important all of a sudden. It's really fucking stupid, but it works. I mean, it works fabulously well, especially when you tweet like pictures of amazing places. Like, people in other countries think you're important because you're traveling to meet them. People in the country you just left think you're important because you're going to meet other people. And so every time you get up, wheels up, wheels down, people think I'm just like, oh, you're just bragging. No, I'm doing marketing, you idiots. And it's working.
It's really important. So we were part of your strategy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, coming to Hawaii, now we can tweet about it. All right. What's our next question?
Favorite market to invest in recently? I was going to say Mexico, but I would probably say actually right now Middle East. Saudi Arabia is really a fascinating place. It has some other baggage going along with it, I will admit that, but I think it's amazing, like the impressions we form of other places without actually going to talk to people there and meet them. I think it's unfair in a lot of ways. Having gone and shared meals with people, both male and female, in the Arabic-speaking market gives you a very different impression of what people are all about. And the fact that we don't do that is a disservice to them and to us.
Next question.
Startups don't know marketing. Can you elaborate on this point? Yeah, building products is pretty fucking easy these days. Design and UX is harder, but doable. Scalable, profitable and scalable customer acquisition, not well understood. And in fact, people spend way more time learning how to code and maybe learning how to do design and not very much time at all understanding how to do marketing, which a lot of people view as evil and bad. And I started out as a programmer, and I used to think sales and marketing was bad and evil. And maybe I've caved now, but like if you have good products, telling people about them is not evil. If you have shitty products, maybe that's the case. But most of startup success or death is not really based on product. I mean, I may have a lot of haters when I say shit like that. There's a strong mythology in Silicon Valley and other places around the world that great products sell themselves. That's mostly the history has been written by people with crappy products and great marketing way more than the other way around. So, but what's interesting now is, you don't have to spend a lot of money on marketing, or at least your metrics on marketing spend are much better than ever before. So your ability to know whether you're actually profitably generating, revenues from customer acquisition is a more, determinable equation these days. So, build product, solve a problem, great. Make sure it's like easily understood and usable, great. But then scale the fuck up. And like that part of it, we just don't have as much expertise on doing, whether that's organic or paid. It's mostly an analytical exercise. There's still a significant creative component to it. And so it's not that startups don't know marketing, it's that they don't spend enough time trying to figure it out when it's absolutely the most important thing in a lot of cases. I mean, figuring out a use case that solves problems, yeah, okay, maybe that's the most important thing, but second, right after that, is scaling. And it's just not a very well understood technique. It's not a very well taught technique. Most VCs don't understand that, so they don't teach it. And we're trying to spend more time figuring that out and working with our companies on it.
Awesome. All right, the last question is mine, Dave. You have spent time here, and it's my question. I'm asking.
Okay, sorry.
Not. You've spent time here. You've been generous with coming here for this event and others. Tell us what is your favorite thing about Hawaii?
Weather, food, people.
Pretty simple, right?
People, probably first. Weather second, food third. That's not. It's tough one between weather and food. People.
People. Okay.
I love you guys.
Oh, we love you too, Dave. Thank you.